Awesome. And then please stay on mute when you're not speaking, just for everyone's sake. If you have any questions at all during the hour, please just type them into the chat, and then there'll be a Q&A session towards the end. And then feel free to tag at BfE Global and at Stepchange Everyone during the event on Twitter if you want to share about your experience. And then after the event concludes, we will be sharing a feedback form just so we can get your thoughts on how things went. We would really appreciate that so we can better serve you going forward. So I'll try and be super brief here. Just gonna want to give a very short introduction to Bridges for Enterprise for those who are unaware. So we are a volunteer-led organization who believe in a united vision to build a more inclusive and sustainable future, led by social entrepreneurs driving local change and advancing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So what this means in practice is that we work alongside early stage social entrepreneurs in the developing world to scale business ventures and empower local communities. We do this by running a 6 to 8 month completely free incubation program for early stage startups that includes consulting and finance advisory, as well as optional legal advisory and technical advisory support programs. So far to date, since being founded in 2015, we've worked with over 90 social enterprises, with over 70% of them coming from Africa. We've worked in over 30 countries, all completely virtually, and we have 5 student-led and professionally organized chapters around the world. And this is just a very brief case study of a startup that we've been very privileged to support, Bag Innovation. They're a fast-growing edtech startup based in Kigali, Rwanda. They build a gamified solution to help upskill youth and prepare them for the workforce. So our New York chapter worked with them and helped to create a macro analysis, a go-to-market strategy, as well as a marketing strategy for the team that ended up resulting in the Bag team winning a $60,000 grant actually after the engagement concluded. And we love supporting startups like Bag, and we just actually accepted 10 more startups into our autumn cohort. So we look forward to welcoming them next month. And so if you are an early stage startup and you're looking for support growing your venture, we would love to work with you. So we have an application deadline coming up of November 1st, so a few months from now. So if you want to be considered for our spring 2022 cohort, we would love for you to apply on our website. It's pretty easy, bridgesforenterprise.com/startups, and all the information will be there. And as you can see here on the right side, some of our partners that we collaborate with include these organizations. We're very lucky to work with them, and one of which is Stepchange Africa, who we're co-hosting this lovely webinar with. So with that, I will turn it over to managing partner of Stepchange Africa, Joe Hopper, to kick things off and talk a little bit about Stepchange.
Thank you, Jordan. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be today's moderator and also introducing Stepchange Africa. So let me tell you a little bit about Stepchange Africa, who we are, what we're all about. So Stepchange Africa is basically resembles a strategic consulting agency, and we funded Stepchange Africa approximately a year ago, and we are a total of 5 managing partners. One being me, and of course, one being Andrew Herweg, being one of today's honorable speakers and guests. And what we do is basically we provide strategic management expertise primarily to SMEs and startups, basically in Europe and Africa and beyond, of course. And our global team is located primarily in Europe and Africa. And it allows us to tap into international networks and also opportunities thereof. In Stepchange, we provide a number of services, and let me just highlight the most important ones. One being trade and export. So this basically resembles, we help enterprises in terms of, well, of course, if they should enter a market, how to expand on a certain market on an international basis, And of course, how to how to remain profitable, mainly in Europe and Africa, because that is also where the also all of our partners are based. And we have fundraising support to apologies, fundraising support to Series A, and also seed stage startups and well-funded SMEs in terms of matchmaking, partnership, and transaction support. And furthermore, we also provide a service, technical assistance. Don't be fooled by the term technical. Technical assistance basically resembles the core of what you would understand as the classical consulting work, meaning that you provide expertise and insight into the entire value chain of an organization or a network of different organizations, meaning finance and accounting, operations, supply chain management, sales and marketing, human resources, just to name a few. And then we have, last but not least, a virtual C-suite. So for those of you who are not familiar with the term C-suite, it resembles the highest level of an organization in terms of management. And here we provide short and medium-term basis in form of acting as an agent of a chief marketing officer, chief communications officer, chief operating officer, chief communications officer, and chief business development officer, just to name a few. And of course, also now let me introduce you to the team of Stepchange Africa. So we have Andrew Herweg, we have Ate Atabong, we have Dr. Andrew Samwanga, we have Amin Esniel, and myself. So who am I? It's my name is Joe Hopper, and I'm based in Hamburg, Germany. And here I live approximately for the past 8 years with my wonderful family. And for the past 10 years, I've worked majorly as a strategic management consultant. I would say mostly within Europe and East Africa. And here I've worked, most sectors I've worked in were aviation, aerospace and defense, automotive, mobility, and nuclear energy. And I've concentrated mostly on supply chain management, logistics, infrastructure development, and operations excellence. That's what I would say is the majority of my past work. And it's been very project heavy, which is why I've worked in a lot of different countries. But that's, of course, that comes to no surprise if most of your projects are between, I would say, 6 to 12 months, not more. But I've decided that a year ago that I've moved back to the industry, basically because it wore me a little bit down, working 60 to 70 hours on a weekly basis, and combining this with family and voluntary commitment. And of course, doing Stepchange Africa, that was a little bit too much. So I've moved back to the industry and now I work as a industrial engineering logistics manager and site management lead for Mars Incorporated. And of course, I'm working also for Stepchange Africa as a co-founder and managing partner. And at Mars Incorporated, I basically deal with managing the global production and logistics network in making it more profitable, and of course, expanding its entire network. And this more or less also resembles my major role at Stepchange Africa. Now, I was thinking how to set today's scene. I had a look at different case studies from past clients. And I thought, instead of just introducing to you a single case studies, which would have been anonymous in any way due to being having signed a non-disclosure agreement, I thought I would just share with you the quintessence of some of these case studies. And don't misunderstand me. This is not a golden path on how to enter or how to expand your business on a national or international level, but this is one way of how you could approach this. And let me start by telling you I've divided this into 3 major sectors, which first of all is establishing the infrastructure. So we start with getting to the market. And this means basically you should, before you start expanding to another market, you should pinpoint your value proposition. Of course, first of all, in your own market. That means you should understand your client's needs and you should have a solid value proposition, meaning having a mission and vision statement and understanding what your actual business is all about and become profitable in a certain way. And then this may be a little bit biased coming from a supply chain management background, but I think Having a supply chain excellency and safeguarding this excellency is very important. And I've highlighted procurement here, especially because within my experience, if you are not able to safeguard your supply chain, your entire business is in the long term going to break down. This is my understanding. Of course, if we talk about supply chain management, it does not only incorporate your supply basis, but of course it expands to what comes after your supplies, so also your clients and the return flow, of course. And then we have talent management. And please excuse that we have talent management twice in this on this slide. This is my mistake. But when we speak about talent management, I speak about safeguarding your in-house talent in your own corporation. Of course, you could ask yourself, why does this come from someone who worked as someone who provides external expertise on a major basis? So typically consultants, they do this on a limited basis. They have limited insight and they only stay with your business for a limited time. So, and that is why your main priority should lay on safeguarding your own talent management, because they are going to be the backbone of expanding your entire business on a long-term view. And then the second part is driving operational improvements. What does this mean? So if you're in early stage or seed enterprise, you typically want to reach out to different investors, meaning of incorporating this capital infusion and having some capital at hand to actually expand your business and growing your entire enterprise. That also, and after this, you will expand your team. When I talk about expanding your team, this does not mean specifically to expand your own talent, your in-house associates, but also tapping into international investor and strategic partnership relationships, because they are eventually going to support you on driving your business nationally or internationally. And then, of course, you should also pay a lot of attention to increasing your efficiency and reducing your costs. And here, I refer to operational excellence, meaning rationalize your product portfolio, assuring quality, because I've spoken about supply chain excellence. If you do not safeguard the quality of your services or your products, eventually these will return instead of your client. And if that happens, you have not secured your quality management in-house. And then, of course, you should embrace flow within your business and within your entire value chain. And of course, you should instill a certain level of purpose across your team. And then we come to the last point: expansion and diversification. So now, if you want to expand to a certain market, of course, you need to understand the ins and outs of this market. And this is where a consulting agency can become very handy, very practical, because they can provide you with expertise and very detailed insights, because typically they've worked across on a multinational basis, and they can help you to identify and to apprehend other markets. And then we come to and this, of course, also involves understanding your emerging consumer bases. It speaks for itself. And of course, you want to stay affordable, meaning that you want to control your costs and this involves a certain focus, because of course, if you do not take a step-by-step approach, you will eventually not receive what you would call a profitable return on investment. This is about setting the scene, giving you a feeling of what today's webinars will be about. But let's come to the most important part of today's webinar. It is introducing today's honorable guests and speakers. I would like to introduce them in the order of their attendance. So first of all, we have Millicent. So Millicent, she's the CEO of MumsVillage, recently merged with Baby Bliss from Nigeria to form the Bliss Group. It's a digital first organization focused on providing content, online resources, and product to pregnant women and mothers in Africa. Now, Millicent herself, she's a seasoned digital media professional, and for more than 7 years already, she has followed her passion in using digital media and empowering women to make informed decisions. And Millicent, she holds a bachelor degrees in, apologies, in business information technology from the Strathcona University. Following Millicent will be Andrew Herweg. Andrew, he's one of the co-founders and managing partners of Stepchange Africa. Prior to Stepchange Africa, he has led or was senior team lead, senior team member of several early stage startups and well-funded SMEs, where he led on expansion, marketing, and business development. Following Andrew will be Aparupa Chakravarti, and Aparupa herself is the director of the Botho Emerging Markets Group, a strategic consulting and investment advisory firm. And Aparupa herself, she has for more than 10 years spearheaded the private sector development in sub-Saharan Africa, advising governments, NGOs, startups, SMEs, and also larger corporations, and with a particular focus on emerging market relations. She has worked in more than 10 countries across 4 continents, across several industries and sectors, reaching from agriculture to education to healthcare and technology. And Aparupa, she holds a bachelor's degree in economics and French from the Brown University and a master's degree in social sciences from the University of Chicago. And I'm pleased to have them here today as the speakers of this webinar. Thank you. So, and now, Millicent, this would be your turn to speak about more what you're doing at MumsVillage.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for that lovely introduction and that roundup of what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm glad I have this opportunity to kick us off. And I'll start with the last point you had shared about expansion across across different markets. And I'm going to be sharing with regards to digital marketing and community building, just based on my experience. So just a second, let me share my screen with you so that you're able to see what I'm speaking of. Just a second. Oops. Sorry about that. I'm using my phone. Okay, let me know as soon as you can see what I'm sharing. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, I think it's perfect.
Okay, fantastic. Cool. So once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share about what I'm passionate about, which is digital marketing and community building. And given the purpose of this conversation, I'm going to be speaking on the tips about how to grow your business online. And the most obvious one is, of course, advertising, because we've spoken about expanding your business, whether locally or globally. And therefore, advertising, especially online, provides that opportunity perfectly. So what we see in terms of businesses is you have organic opportunities and paid opportunities. So this would be organic's best definition is it's free. Therefore, you don't have to directly spend money to be able to do that. And then for paid, you have to put in some money to see something in return. So when you're thinking about doing advertising for your business, whether it's paid or organic, there are certain questions that keep being asked. And I've been asked this question over the years is, why should I advertise my business? Or what should I be advertising about my business? And then what type of advertising do I do, especially online, because many people have had to go online, especially with the pandemic happening. And then where should I advertise my business? Which channels work best for my business? And how do I know that the advertisement is paying off? So what I'd say for this is when you're thinking about advertising for your business, be clear on what goals you're trying to achieve. If you're selling physical products, how many products do you need to sell to be able to make a profit or to make money in return? Or if you're selling services, how do you need to create the messaging for your services to be able to sell more of them? And when you're thinking about organic, because it's free, It means that if you choose to go the route of organic advertising, it means that it's going to take a bit more time. So that's usually one of the drawbacks with organic advertising, is because it's free, it means it takes a lot more time to be able to get there. And so it requires a lot of patience, but it's a very good form of advertising that pays off in the long run. So at some point, if you want to stop spending money on advertising and instead have that evergreen method that brings in revenue for your business, organic is the way to go. And then in terms of paid, where you spend directly in terms of marketing your products or services, there are different tools you can use. So if you're already online digitally, your main channels are your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, and channels keep coming up nowadays. So TikTok is one that comes up nowadays. Some people use Snapchat, some people use LinkedIn. So they're able to spend some money in those different channels to be able to make money for their business. So when you're deciding which channel to use, look at your data. When you look at where most of your customers come from, for example, if it's online selling, which channel brings in the most valuable customers for your business? Analyze that data and see what brought them in to be able to pay. What brought them in to be able to make that decision to buy from you. And once that data is clear, then you're able to put advertising spend against it. And it varies with channels. So for example, for MumsVillage we found that Facebook and Instagram work very well for us. So when we are deciding on what type of advertising spend to put in the channels, we've calculated already, we already know what's our return on investment if we spend on a certain type of advertisement, because we've looked at our data, we've looked at the audience who's looking at our ads and making purchases, and then we've gone ahead to putting money against the ads that work well. One disadvantage I'd say with paid advertising is that sometimes you spend money but don't get the returns. And so what ends up happening is like you're burning money from your business. And especially for MSMEs or like growing businesses, you literally cannot afford to be wasting money in terms of advertising because you want to be growing your revenue numbers. So what I'd say is when you're running campaigns, especially if they're paid on either an online advertising platform, if you use Facebook ads or you use Google ads or you use Twitter ads, pay close attention to the campaigns while they're running and pay close attention to the results of those ads that you're running. If you look at an ad every day or every other day to track how it's performing, the tools will be able to share with you how it's performing. So it'll tell you, actually, if you're advertising to women of this age, they don't click on your ads, they don't look at your ads, or the people who are looking at it cannot buy the product that you're selling. So you're allowed to pause the ad, make adjustments, and test again. So I'd say with advertising, whether you're doing organic or paid, look at the results to tell you where to spend the money, and also see the results and then make changes as you go along. And then in terms of content with regards to digital marketing, at least East Africa nowadays is very what's the word? It's very good with video and text type of content. So we've seen a lot of podcasts type coming up, but then I'd say in East Africa currently it's growing, but it's not where it is in the Western world where it makes sense for you to make money from it. So for businesses, especially people who come to me for some level of advice with regards to where to, what type of content to create for their business, I recommend video and text, because when people are able to read and understand the product or the service that you're selling, then it's easier for them to make a decision about that product. And what video and text allow you to do is you can use them interchangeably. So you can create a list of how to use this sewing machine that you may be selling, and then or create a video from that as well about how to actually use the sewing machine. And then once you've used your learnings from the advertising you're running, you can link the two. So if you combine your content and your advertising, then you know how to use it across your businesses. And so what I'd say about content is when you're creating it, speak to your customers, find out what they want to know, do your research so that you don't create content that's just using up space on either your website or your social media platforms. So ask them, or go back and look at your data once again and see, what questions do I keep being asked? If someone keeps asking, I want to sew a dress, but a dress that has pockets. create content about, here's a how-to about dressmaking, or using a sewing machine to make pockets on your dress, and then create a video for the same type of content. And once you get feedback that that answers the questions that they have, then you can put that in an advertising platform and then run an ad, and make sure to have we call them call to actions in digital marketing, for someone to take to make a decision. So if someone is like, oh, I like what they've shared, it makes sense for me, this is the product I'm looking for, how do I buy it? So make sure, like, when you're sharing your ads or the content you've created and you'd like someone to buy based on the information they've received, be very clear about what the next step is. What do I do now? I've read it, then what? So make sure to be able to give the next steps for someone to be able to make that decision. And then how will you know that it's working? If people stop asking you the same questions over and over again and they're still buying. So you find that with some, like what we've seen with some products is, it's not very clear cut that if it's this kind of product, it's going to be used for this kind of thing. So we know there may be gaps. So what we do is we create content to answer those questions that we keep getting asked, either via phone calls or via direct messaging. And then we create a piece of content. Sometimes we convert it to video, and then once we've answered those questions, we check with our customers. Does this make sense? Does this answer the questions you're asking? Because chances are, if you find a few customers asking repetitive questions, there are going to be other customers who are going to ask the same questions. So content helps you fix this gap. And then when you're running the advertisement, you know that people's questions have been answered. And then finally, for community building, I would say look at online and offline. And in this sense, I mean, for your business, when you're starting, you have more of a personal type of community where your friends, your families, the people who invested in you when you are coming up with the idea are the ones who will be able to help you to move to that next level. And then beyond that, once they've bought that initial stock, usually what happens is you see a drop in people who are purchasing from you, unless it's like a must-have item and they need it every day. But if you have a different kind of business where just family and friends is not enough for you to make business sense, I'd say look externally. Build a community of your customers to ask them, oh, I'm thinking of this product I want to build. What do you think I should add to this product? Or what do you think I should say about this product to help people buy it and understand it? So that external community gives you that feedback that's not, I don't know, emotional, maybe is the word to use. And then another sense of external community is your networks. So because we're talking about digital marketing, you can look at different digital platforms. LinkedIn is a fantastic platform for you to be able to grow your professional network. There are thought leaders there in the industry you're in. There are people in the same business as you, or people in businesses complementing what you're doing. So it allows you to create that professional community that helps you advance in your business, go that next stage in your business. So the question for you is, what are you doing with your LinkedIn profile currently? Is it helping you or is it hurting you? Do you have one or don't you have one? So those type of questions. And then you determine, like, when you look at your LinkedIn profile, for example, what do I want to do next to this community? Do I want to pay for LinkedIn Premium to be able to access certain decision makers who will buy my product, especially for technical products? And it also allows you to create content that gives you that thought leadership based on the business that you're running. So it's looking at community building for your business, both internally for your support, for your business support, for investors, and then externally for you to be able to learn from others who are doing either something similar to what you're doing or something complementary to what you're doing. And I think I'd say finally, with regards to community building, is look at associations that are in the industry that you're in. So for example, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, if you're selling, like, I don't know, machines or like things that are in the manufacturing industry, or if you're part of the manufacturing food chain, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, fantastic organization to be part of. There may be a fee, but then it pays off in the long run because it exposes you to things beyond your small circle of family or friends. KEPSA is another good one. They have fantastic programs, fantastic funding opportunities, fantastic channels that they open you up to beyond just the network that you have. So when you're thinking about community building and whether it's important for your business to grow, think about it in different ways. What are the online channels? What are the offline channels? And how do I bring this together to be able to take my business to that next level? So I'd say in terms of what's next, sorry, that image is not appearing, is across advertising, content, and community, test, 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 and test again. So experiment. If you're running adverts online or offline, what are the results that are coming in? Make sure your goals are clear. If the results that you see from the advertisement you're doing, do they match what your goals were? If not, test again, change. Test again, change, and then look at the data. Same thing for content. If you created a piece of content and no one is reading, find out from people who are experts in content creation, what am I doing wrong? How do I improve the discoverability? I've heard about SEO, how do I do it? And then explore tools as well. There are certain websites, between websites like HubSpot or Backlinko or Neil Patel, those 3 websites alone, and you want to learn about digital marketing, you can do a whole, you can learn so much for just reading the content that they have on those 3 websites. And then in terms of communities, just build. Find out what would make this community more valuable for you and continue to learn from them. And when they give you feedback, test it. Does it make sense? No. If it doesn't, cut it off. If it does make sense, make that change and continue growing your business. So that's what I have for you today. I'll take it back to you, Joe.
Thank you, Millicent, for providing this proficient insight. So we're going to wrap up today's speakers at the end of their individual speeches. So I will now pass over to Andrew from Stepchange Africa.
Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well today. So as Joe said, my name is Andrew and I'm from Stepchange Africa. So what I'm doing over the next 10 minutes is just giving you sort of a whirlwind sort of breakdown of information in regards to 3 particular areas that you need to take in consideration as you look to expand your business, whether beyond your small town or village of origin or going international. And all this information comes across from basically my experience as a company operator for 5+ years across East Africa, but also sitting on the other side of the table as an advisor, consultant, mentor, and investor. So kicking off first, taking a look at financial management, you need to make sure your things are in order. And what I've done right now is really breaking it down into 4 buckets: to understanding, credit control, transparency, and accountability. So first, let's talk about understanding. You as the founder or CEO, you need to understand the basic of finances. If you don't understand your basic finances, don't expect someone else to. And that's very important. Also, you being the head of the organization, make sure you have defined management accounts. As you look to expand, you need to have set KPIs, you need to have forecasts, because you need to be able to know, is this financially viable, the work that you're actually doing as you grow your business? Moving over to credit control. What's important about credit control is, first, encourage early and electronic payments. If you can't do early payments, I know that's terribly difficult. The best way to do it is actually do payment upon delivery of goods. In terms of electronic payments, I know that might sound a little bit silly or ridiculous as we're sort of still in the midst of COVID, but if you're not accepting credit card payments or at very least mobile money, you need to make sure that's encouraged. There's a lot more transparency and the money hits your accounts right away. Next is make sure you issue your invoices immediately. The reason I say that is companies cannot begin processing your payment until the invoice is issued. I can't tell you how many times my colleagues sat on invoices, or myself, I messed up too. And particularly if you work with larger corporations such as major hotel chains, they operate on 30, 60, or even 90-day payment periods. Next thing up is make sure you're chasing after customers who don't pay you upon delivery of goods. This is particularly important because if you don't stay on top of your financial officer or your salesperson who's engaging with this, it will be forgotten because there's other things that come up along the way. I can tell you from personal experience, I had recently joined 1000 Hills Distillery. And actually, before I came in, the sales officer forgot actually to follow up, and there wasn't a proper knowledge transfer to me as who took over as a managing director. And at the very end of the year, realized that we missed out on $2 million of actually payment that was actually never followed up upon. And then last one in credit control section is make sure you offer flexible payment terms for those customers that are good to you, because sometimes they'll be a bit of a bind, so help them out. Because know what, when you're in a bit of a bind, you want your customers and partners to help you out too. Credit control is really important because what affects most SMEs, whether they survive or not, is mere cash flow. Going below to accountability, it's really important you have oversight, whether it's you double checking what the financial officer is doing, or if you're managing the finances yourself, making sure you have a friend or a financial consultant come in and review the work. It's because mistakes will be made. It's also because that individual may not be 100% aware of all the different changing within the different tax regime, particularly working across Africa as a whole, that there's a constant change in the tax regulatory body and the industry. There are new developments on monthly basis and that appear on quarterly basis too. So make sure you have various layers just to reduce the mistakes, and also make sure money doesn't go missing. And then last but not least, on the transparency side, make sure you're digitizing your finances. Most of you, you're probably using pen and paper. If you're a little bit more advanced, you're probably using Excel spreadsheets. At the end of the day, get accounting software. It is very affordable. It's less than $10 a month, and it's going to make your life easier. For example, you can use QuickBooks, you can use Wave, you can use Xero. They're all very easy to use, and this has come from someone whose background originally wasn't in finance. Also, make sure when you do use this accounting software, you limit access to your overall financial records. It's for you, other members of the C-suite team, and whoever's managing your finances. Do not give access to basically your front of house staff or other individuals to help out with the day-to-day running. They're only there on a need-to-know basis when it comes to your finance. And last but not least, financial management is not only sort of managing your finance, but it's also appropriately discussing and sharing that information with your staff. Because your staff will know what you're making on a daily basis. They see the money coming in and out. But they don't have a good grasp of how the business is really doing because they don't understand the back end. Or maybe if they work on the back end, they're actually not on the front of house. So make sure you are sharing that information with the team so they know the overall health of the business.
Thank you, Andrew.
No, Joe, two more
apologies.
No problem at all, Joe. Two other areas I'm going to quickly go through. First up is partnerships for growth. Overall, partnerships are a great way to expand. It can allow you to rapidly grow. It can also cut your costs in terms of expansion as well. And also, surprisingly, it can open up a lot of doors for future opportunities. In terms of structuring for success, make sure you know what you want in terms of a partnership. Do your research. That's something that Joe talked about. That's something also Millicent talked about as well. Very important. We cannot stress it enough. Also, make sure you identify key partners and do your research, understand how they operate. Look at who's part of the team. See if they've taken on sort of innovative products before. If they haven't done that before, the likelihood of your success working with them is probably not that strong. Next up is make sure you understand what your proposal actually is to the potential partner, and make sure you can actually explain what the unique selling proposition is. And here, to be honest, sometimes whoever you present this partnership and this great opportunity to, they may not get it. If they don't get it, don't waste your time. There's no point in quote unquote being a dead horse. And also, say you get that idea off the ground. They love what you just talked about. As you brought to the table, it is your idea. You need to drive it forward. You're responsible for the project management overall. And last but not least, there is no such thing as over communication when you're looking at partnerships. Over communicate, because when you stop communicating, people are going to stop doing work. They're going to start wondering, is this still happening? You might be keep sending messages. People may not respond to them, but they are reading them. And then, what are the types of partnerships? Well, there's a couple that you see right in front of you, and I'm just going to touch upon two, because I think those are the most sort of unique in total. First up is the joint venture. That's where you can get a lot of innovation, a lot of great, amazing ideas and products come together. One particular example is when I was running 1000 Hills Distillery, we worked with a local macadamia nut grower, and together we created Africa's first macadamia nut liquor. Found that pretty cool, and it's something we would have not been able to do without the Rwanda Nut Company. The other thing I want to touch upon is compliance and regulatory. Particularly if you operate in an industry that is heavily regulated, such as food and beverage, health, financial services, it's really important that you're staying on top of regulation and you're ahead of the game. If you can join the likes of private sector federations or foundations, or European business chambers, or various startup associations that represent you and what you're fighting for and what you stand for, that's going to help you adapt accordingly and be aware of regulatory changes that are happening in the near future and further down the line. And then just to wrap up my side of the presentation, go-to-market strategy. This is critical as you're growing your business. And a lot of this information is actually coming from my time working at Stepchange Africa. Starting off with product market fit, make sure you understand the problem you're trying to solve, then design the solution. There are too many businesses that I've particularly seen, they create the product first, and then they go out and find the problem. Or they create the product first, but they don't understand the problem. Research, it's key and paramount, and I'll tell a little bit more about that in a few seconds. Moving over to competition and demand. It is very important to know your direct and indirect competition in your new markets of operation. If you don't, you're already a step behind in the game. I can't tell you how many pitch decks I've seen and how many entrepreneurs I've spoken to that they have missed out on numerous competitors that they haven't even thought about. What that tells me as the consultant or as the investor, this entrepreneur doesn't understand what they're getting into, and concerns come out, and that's not good. Next thing is make sure you understand your total addressable market, your serviceable addressable market, and your service attainable markets. The reason to say that is, and this is mainly from the investor side, but also for you as well, is too many times I've seen pitch decks or things coming across my desk is they do the total addressable market. They say there's a $5 billion market across sub-Saharan Africa for this health startup, and we'll get 10% of the market. I hate to tell you, you're not going to get 10% of the market. Then, as you go to your SAM and your SUM, you're slowly getting more specific, more drilling down to where the opportunities are. Your SUM is going to be your most important. But just taking a step back, if you don't have a big enough TAM or SAM, there's a lot of investors, particularly demographic investors, that will not get involved in your company. Taking a step below to target market audience, this is where the research comes into a little bit more. Conduct the research, 10 question surveys, use a baseline of 100 surveys, or do 20 observation-based engagements. Those are nice baselines where you can draw inferences from the data that you've collected, and then you can act upon accordingly. And then last but not least on my side of the presentation is the distribution. Make sure whatever you include, make sure it's online and offline. So take that brilliant information that Millicent just gave to you, take that from the digital side, but also blend it to an offline side. Because no matter what, whether you're Google or you're just a startup that's been there for a few months, everyone has a physical part and they also have an online presence. And that's important for you to make sure that exists. And then last but not least, make sure you do more with less. Don't look at spending $2,000 on a TV ad. Don't look spending $500 on a radio ad if you don't have the cash. Because you know what? That is going to run you into the ground. A lot of young entrepreneurs, they tend to think TV and radio is going to get me where I need to be. It won't. Get out there, talk to customers. Nothing's better than word of mouth and taking advantage of affordable paid for advertising and organic advertising on the social media channels. So that's my side of the presentation. So I just want to say thank you. If you have any further questions, we can answer that during the further Q&A section. So now back to you, Joe.
Thank you, Andrew, for providing this practical hands-on advice, especially on the go-to-market strategy. I believe that a lot of our participants today will find this very helpful. Now, I would like to pass over to Aparupa.
Thank you, Joe. I will just go ahead and share my screen. Go. Can you see my screen? All good?
Perfectly.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It is wonderful to be here today with all of you and participate in this very important and meaningful conversation. I have worked with a wide variety of startups over the years, supporting them through a number of different types of expansion, from launching new product lines and service offerings to creating entirely new business lines altogether, to facilitating entry into new markets and geographies. That said, the hat that I have worn most frequently is that of a consultant. And insofar as consultants and consulting firms are no strangers to controversy, I do firmly believe that when done right, a good consultant can add a lot of value to your business at any point in your trajectory, whether that's pre-expansion, during expansion, or even post-expansion. While I spend a lot of time thinking about how to be a good consultant and how to be a valuable advisor to my clients and those whom I serve, today I would like to sit on the other side of the table, as it were, and speak to you a little about what you as entrepreneurs should look out for when you want to engage with an external consultant so that you can get the most value out of that relationship. Because from my experience, chances are at some stage you will be talking to or engaging a consultant to support you with at least some aspect of your business. So I'd like to begin by talking a little bit about how to approach a consulting engagement. Like any relationship, the one between a client and a consultant is, or at least it ought to be, dynamic. Sometimes this relationship will be very transactional. You will have a clear scope of work, clear deliverables, a tight timeline, a tight budget, and you'll be done and dusted within those specs. At other times, this relationship might be a little bit more, well, relational and organic, where you might have an objective or a set of objectives in mind, but there will be a little bit more fluidity in terms of how and when you get there. And I think it's very important for entrepreneurs to recognize that it's actually very okay to toggle between both of those states. And it's not an either or proposition where transactional is better than relational or relational is better than transactional. It really depends on where you are, where your business is, and what your needs and context are in that moment. But for this to be possible and for you to be able to take advantage of either of those states, I would encourage for you to keep two key things in mind. One is, it is usually of mutual benefit for both the consultant and the client to have a more participatory rather than a very top-down approach. Your consultant should help you identify what your blind spots are. Your consultant should help you make connections outside of your day-to-day operations, outside of your immediate environment or ecosystem, and things that you may not be able to see because you're in the thick of it, right? And in order to do that, give your consultant a little bit of room. Give them a little bit of room to co-create and co-define and work through a problem set with you. The second thing is that it helps to have a bit of a longer term perspective for some of this stuff. Even if you have a very transactional engagement in mind and you want to do something that's quick and dirty, well-defined and short-term, how does that fit in with your overall planning and strategy? If you've managed to find a good short-term consultant, how can you continue to tap into this firm or this person as your needs continue to sort of evolve and shift over time in a way that makes sense for you and, even maybe perhaps the consultant themselves? But that said, don't just take my word from it. It just so happens that my fellow panelist, Millicent, is also a long-standing client of mine, and Botho and MumsVillage, or now Baby Bliss Group, have over the years been able to oscillate between both transactional and relational engagements, depending on what the needs were at the time. So Millie, could you tell us a little bit about how that was like from your perspective as the client?
Sure, thanks, Aparupa. Yeah, so in terms of what she's just shared, it's very true. There are different forms of engagement you can have with consultants. So in the way we worked with Aparupa and her team is they've been through the journey from when MumsVillage was launched, actually, from the beginning until now. So, and in different capacities. So when we had launched, it was ambiguous. We knew what we wanted to do, but then the structure of how to do it, we had a bit of a struggle with. And because we were not the experts, and we knew the Botho team, it made sense for them to come in, sit with us, help us through that process to kill some of that ambiguity. And so fortunately for us is we had a longer engagement that time in the beginning, where she helped us set up structures and set up our teams, build some of our strategy. And even when we were building our e-commerce business, she was there with us through that process during the sprint, trying to figure out what do we want this business to look like. So in terms of the roles that consultants play, it made a lot of sense, especially for where we were as a business and where we were trying to get to. And then now that we have merged with another business and the business has grown and the business is bigger, then now it's on a need basis, where it's that transactional element she's talked about. So she has helped us when we were raising money through grants. She's helped us go through that grant fundraising process, and it's done and dusted. And then when we are, right now we are fundraising. So we're working with them to be able to see what type of investors can we bring on board that makes sense for the business. So that transactional bit is more one-off than the relational bit, but I think they complement each other very well. So thank you, Aparupa.
Thank you, Millie. I've talked a little bit about how to approach your consulting engagement, and now I want to say a couple of things about what you should expect from your consultant. As far as a stereotypical portrayal of a consulting engagement goes, there's this impression that consultants come in, they do a little bit of research, they do some number crunching, and then they give you a beautiful deck, and then they move on. And insofar as that's a little bit facetious, increasingly both clients and consultants have been recognizing the value of marrying strategy with at least some degree of implementation. That degree will vary depending on the client, the consultant, the scope of work, and what's feasible. But even in cases, and there are plenty of cases still, where a deck is necessary or some equivalent of a deck, whether that's a financial model, a business plan, an operational tool, whatever that may be, you as a client need to make sure that whatever you're being given can be used by you, can be adapted by you, can be tweaked and amended over time as your business changes and as it grows. And this is also where the participatory approach that I spoke of earlier will come into play, because the more you work with your consultant, the likely you are to receive something from them at the end of that engagement that you can make sense of and run with, even when the consultant is not there. And I'd like to emphasize that last point, because we've come across many instances at this point, both amongst our clients as well as others within our broader ecosystem, where they've engaged an external consultant, the consultant has done a bunch of work and handed over something to the client, which the client then found to be unusable. Either it was too complex, or it was too difficult to decipher, or it didn't meet their internal criteria for whatever they were trying to do or achieve. And what ended up happening was they either had to go back to the drawing board and start from scratch, or they had to bring in another consultant to fix those issues and translate some of that work for them. And that's the last thing you want happening, because for you as a client, that is a sunk cost. You can't recoup that what's done is done, right? So you want to make sure that you get ahead of that. Secondly, it's important to pay attention to who's being assigned to you when you're working with a consultant firm. Pay attention to the level of seniority, have a look at what skills and expertise are being brought to the table, because depending on what's needed, depending on the problem set at hand, sometimes you'll need an analyst, and that's very okay. Sometimes you might need a manager, sometimes a director, partner, etc. So it's good to make sure that whatever aspect of your business is being addressed by the right person within that broader consulting outfit. And then finally, while it's important to know who you want, it is equally important to know who you do not want, and that is a gatekeeper. Your advisor is meant to work with you and keep your interests in mind at all times and offer you guidance and recommendations in accordance with that. One somewhat worrying trend that we've observed over the past couple of years is that there seems to be a pool of consultants in the market who, and this is usually under the guise of offering pro bono services, especially to early stage entrepreneurs, end up making demands or dictating terms that are quite frankly way beyond the bounds of what an advisory role should constitute. And this can extend from everything from preventing you from maybe working with other advisors, even if they are able to add value to you and they might be a good fit for you and your needs at the time, to dictating who should sit on your board. So when you're vetting a new consultant, try to read between the lines and try to pay attention to not just what you expect from them, but also what they expect from you. Because ultimately, this is meant to be a relationship that is mutually beneficial and not extractive on either side. So with these considerations in mind, I hope that you will be able to identify and build a productive and mutually beneficial and hopefully long-term relationship with whichever advisor you choose to bring on board to support your business. Thank you so much. Back to you, Joe.
Thank you, Aparupa. I'm especially familiar with the term of life is all about expectations. It's very important, and thank you for emphasizing this point. Now, I know we're over time, but before wrapping things up, we still have a Q&A session that we should engage in. So I'm asking each and one of the attendants to please ask any question you have in mind, and to make things easier for you, so you can ask anything in relation to today's topic in terms of for example, what am I going to achieve by expanding? Do I have enough financing to expand my business? How do I do it? I remember Andrew has given some good practical advice. Will I be able to afford hiring new staff members? Once again, we talk about financials. You can ask something about how can you do your research? How can you approach your clients? How can you align expectations? How can you anticipate needs? How we can handle your costs in terms of growth and expansion? How can you handle them? If you need additional financing, how will I get access to it? Just to give you a bunch of questions to get you thinking, and please feel free to ask anything you have in mind. So you can either type them into the chat box, or you can just unmute yourself and just speak directly to the audience.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Ivan. Sorry, I had raised my hand and getting a reply. First of all, thank you for the conversation. Lots of lessons. I was taking notes. I think I'll create possibly a Twitter thread of all the lessons, and will be like so long. Thank you so much. I had one question, mainly was to Andrew. It's about investing. One question I had was, let's say we are creating a startup, which is for Africa, but based in Africa. Let's say you move to another country to Western Africa, and then you get to create a startup, which is for one niche market, which is like for Africa. How do you get to bridge that gap of having to create something when you're not there, and how do you access any support? How do you do thorough research when you're creating something but you're not in that particular market right then? Also, have to have Mrs. Aparupa point of view on that as a consultant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ivan. So I'll jump in, and if anyone else, any other panelists want to add into it as well, go ahead. So the first thing is just do your research, sort of identify individuals who are sort of experts in that space, or people within your own network. Do searches on LinkedIn, do simple Google searches, connect with local innovation hubs. Those are all very useful resources in order to actually better understand sort of the markets you're getting into. And actually, these people will be most likely be able to put you in touch with larger networks. So not only be people based on the ground, but people that have really specific skill set and expertise in that particular sort of area you're looking at. If you're looking to go from like one place to another, the big thing is you have to take on to a number of different sort of variables into context. You have to look at if you're just sort of structuring the business, how you're going to do that. If you're going to Anglophone Africa to Francophone Africa, completely different structures that they operate, different names, also different languages as well. So there's a whole entire sort of realm of things you have to look at when you are trying to do that. But the best thing to do is seek out people who already done it or people that have tried it. And that could just be simple of just connecting with people over LinkedIn. So I'm not sure, Yvonne, did that answer your question in particular, or would you like me to go a little bit further?
It did more of trying to find some connections through portals that are already there. Thank you.
Welcome. I'm not sure, maybe Aparupa or Millicent, if you want to jump in as well, particularly sort of the work you did with sort of the Baby Bliss group. I'm not sure if that would be sort of possibly helpful too.
Yeah, I think, Andrew, I think you've answered it very well, especially in using the networks you have. And the advantages we have right now is just digital has opened up so much in terms of learning, and people have done case studies. So I agree with what you've said in terms of reaching out to people who've done it, testing online, and then asking your customers. So imagine you sell an online service and you have customers from that country, find out from them what they need for you to be able to set up in that market, and then go from there with some of the pointers that Andrew has shared.
Yvonne, I'm so sorry, my internet was a little bit unstable. Would you mind repeating the question once for me?
Of course, no worries. I'll definitely do that. Yeah, my question was when you're trying to start a business, or let's say you're trying to bootstrap a startup which serves a niche market. Let's say I'll give an example. I'm UK based, but I'm trying to start a business where the niche market is Rwanda, which is my country. But then how do you get to know the market when you're not there? Because is there some things you're missing out? Is there, even if you try to learn, because I'm just going to, what Andrew shared, that you have to think of the online and the offline part of it. And my questions, it's like, which tips or which ideas would you suggest me to have a look into when you're trying to start a business, but you're not based there, although you have done definite research, but which tips are really, which lessons together?
Got it. Thank you for repeating. Right. So I mean, I think Andrew and Millicent covered a decent range, and I think what I could add on to that potentially is look for nodes in markets that serve as central points in terms of networks and information, right? So whether that's professional associations, whether that's hubs or accelerators, whether that could be government agencies. Usually, if you're able to tap into some of these kinds of entities that are then connected to other organizations or other individuals, that tends to have a little bit of a ripple effect in terms of what you're looking for and can give you a bit of oversight. So you're not necessarily looking at it from a specific silo, but you have a little bit more of a big picture. And once you have that orientation, then I think it'll give you enough of a baseline to narrow down your search and ask follow-up questions and identify specific people or organizations that you may want to tap into.
Amazing. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
That perhaps another attendee who has a question. So Eglet, yes, please.
Eglet. My name is Eglet. Yeah, thank you.
Eglet.
I was just checking on the website of the Stepchange Africa, and I am based in the Netherlands and have interest, actually started operating a business in Zimbabwe. And I have not seen, or maybe I missed it, but I didn't see any information regarding Zimbabwe. How do you deal with, when you say Africa, is it like the whole of Africa, or you've got some specific countries you are targeted on?
So I guess I'll jump in there, and then Joe, if you want to add anything to it. So particular, just to be frank, so we focus really on sub-Saharan Africa, and then sort of looking after sort of the TAM, the SAM, and the SOM. With it, really our deep expertise goes across sort of Southern and Eastern Africa, East African community, SADC community. Of course, Zimbabwe is included within SADC. It's because, for example, one of our colleagues, he's South African, so he's done sort of work across sort of all of Southern Africa. And then Joe, myself, Dr. Andrew and Ate, sort of quite deep experiences in Southern Africa, but mainly in Eastern Africa, the Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and then also Burundi and Congo included, even though Congo's not in, the EAC yet. Yeah, so in terms of Zimbabwe, it would just sort of go into sort of what are you looking to do specifically? Where do you actually need assistance from that perspective? So it's one of the things we also operate with. Yes, we have 5 managing partners, but we actually do have a network of sort of experts that we work with in country who are actually down on the ground if we're not in that country, sort of with one of the managing partners at the present time. So we leverage that network. So we make sure there's sort of people touching on the ground who actually have sort of hopefully networks that matter. These networks go across the public and private sector. So if you're curious to see what we can potentially do, we're happy to sort of line up a call with you so we can share our contact information and sort of take it further.
Perfect. That would be great. I'd love to know more. And the second question I had was just on a general look on sustainability, because I'm in the textile industry. And for me, with Africa, it's also very important that we drive this home to really have sustainability in the industry. How do you see, working with Africa, how do you see sustainability being embraced or being worked on in general? And how do people react to this, ongoing global climate issues?
So I'm not sure. I can start on that. If somebody else wants to jump in, or Aparupa, do you want to go first so I don't hog everything?
Sure, happy to. Hi, Aglet. So I think that question can be sliced in a number of different ways, because depending on the industry, sector, region, even country, I think the approaches and the orientation towards sustainability could be quite different. We do quite a lot of work in the textiles and apparel industry specifically, and we've done so in East Africa, a little bit in Southern and West Africa as well. And there's a number of different ways in which this is being tackled, sort of looking across the value chain, all the way down to what the inputs are and what makes sense in terms of what's sustainable, what can leverage smallholder farmers, what does that mean in terms of what the broader value chain looks like, etc., all the way up to things like scaling businesses, scaling manufacturing, leveraging technology, being able to access different markets and different types of product. How do you sort of reorient certain value chains to encourage manufacturing here and help move African countries further along the value chain than they have been in recent years, things of that nature. So I think it's quite a broad question, and I think it's quite multifaceted. But what I will say is that there have been a number of really interesting trends that have been underway, especially in your industry in particular, around a lot of these kinds of questions. And depending on where you sit on the value chain, I think you'll find that there's a number of different things that you could potentially tap into.
Thank you. Yeah, quite clear. I think when I get in touch with Andrew, we'll find out more information on how we can get assisted with this. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Igret. Are there any further questions? If not, what I would like to perhaps, we have, I guess we have a lot of founders here, and we've spoken about the importance of communication, reaching out to your networks, aligning and getting to know your clients and suppliers' expectations. We've spoken about focus, we've spoken about research, and communication is a very important factor in your daily business. So perhaps Andrew, Millicent, and Aparupa, perhaps you can share some information, because we've all been there. We do, I guess each one of us is getting tons of inquiries over LinkedIn, for example. And most of these are just bland and boring. So perhaps you can provide some expertise and insight on how people should perhaps channel their information and their messages so that they get read.
Sure, I'll kick off. In terms of just how make sure it gets read, just know what you want when you send a message. That's the great starting point. And then also just make sure you have an idea what sort of I do, or at least read through my LinkedIn profile. Because there's sometimes that people ask for information like, I can't be any help whatsoever, or they clearly don't understand what I actually do. So do your research and just understand sort of what's the value proposition for me, the receiver in this. At the end of the day, I've received actually a lot of inquiries about people just asking sort of like, can I just talk to you for 30 minutes because I like what you do? And I'm always happy to do that because it's something that's sort of just personal to me. But at the end of the day, like that's sort of what works really well for me. If the people don't, they just say, I like what you do, can you just tell me more? That's perfectly fine, but that doesn't work for that many people. So it's one of the things where just know what you want, do your research, and just sort of get to the point, and just don't waste time at the end of the day. I'm always happy to do a 30-minute call, but if you're pushing me to do an hour call on a Friday night, I've gotten people to do that before. It doesn't work. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it again with it. So those are just sort of my experiences, at least from LinkedIn. So I could pass it on to, I think, Millicent, you want to go next?
Sure, yeah, I like what you said, because the same thing has happened to me. I'd say be very clear on what you want to ask that person in the beginning. So when the message, like for LinkedIn is a good example, if you use it on your phone, you see the subject of the message first. So be very clear. It's, I want to connect with you for 15 minutes about ABCD. So then someone knows, okay, do I open, do I read, do I respond? So I think I agree with Andrew, be very clear on what you want. And if you're able to use a connection you already have to get to the person you actually need to speak to, I think that's another way to be able to find out, I mean, to be able to get FaceTime with the person who would help your business. So for example, it's if I'm trying to get a partnership with a certain business, but I don't know anyone in that business, check, I guess LinkedIn is another good example. Again, check who you're connected to, who knows someone in that business, and then go through that route. Because sometimes you may go directly and someone is like, this is so random, I won't respond. But when it comes through someone who you already know, then it becomes so much easier to connect with that person. And then, yeah, coffee chats, I agree, like, keep it interesting. Sometimes it's, maybe you don't want to talk about business, maybe you're trying to make new friends, but then be very clear on what the other person will get out of it. And I think it'll be easier to be able to connect with people. And finally, use, I liked Aparupa's presentation. It was very funny, as in the lessons were very clear, but then the images she used were very funny. So maybe it's, what's your version of humor that doesn't go beyond like, it's excessive because you don't know this person, to be able to like break that ice. I think that would be a fun way to connect with someone. Aparupa?
I think you guys have covered a lot of it, but I guess speaking in terms of what catches my attention, what both Andrew and Millie said about sort of finding a personal hook, whether that's someone you may know or a topic that is clear that I care about, whatever that may be, I think that helps. Brevity, I like people who can sort of kind of get to the point and just, you know, cut to the chase. I do like that. And thirdly, if it is something that's a bit left field or seemingly random, I'm a sucker for a really good story. So if you have a damn good story, my natural inclination will be to like, ooh, cool, let's hear more, let's see where this goes. So if you can tell a really good story, sometimes that's all you really need to get through the door, depending on who the person is and how curious they are.
Wonderful, thank you. Is there perhaps anyone else in this chat who has a question in his mind? If that's not the case, I'm going to wrap up today's webinar. So thank you once again to all of our guests and of course our speakers. So thank you, Millicent, for speaking or giving advice on advertising, on content creation, on community building, and the incorporated feedback loop on objectives and key results to channel your investments to make them, actually make them meaningful. Thank you, Andrew, for providing practical hands-on advice, especially in terms of your go-to-market strategy and the importance in knowing the ins and outs of your financials, sharing these, and actually having somewhat like having a steady cash flow, because it will determine your success in the long run. And thank you, Aparupa, for speaking about the ins and outs of how to engage consultants, but especially what I liked is to create interest-based dynamic relationships. It is super important, and I can fully resonate with that. We've spoken about the importance of research, communication, reaching out to networks, and aligning expectations. That is one of my favorites, to be honest. And we've spoken about focus and speaking to clients, reaching out to networks, and in order to anticipate needs and to pinpoint your value proposition. I think we've had a very nice webinar. And once again, my thanks also for Jordan for setting up this webinar. And well, I'm leaving the final work to Jordan, I guess.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joe. And just to wrap up before everything, I really just want to say this has been such a treat to have all these fantastic speakers here today. They shared so much great advice. And I'm really grateful that you were able to share your insights with all those participating. And then to all the participants, thank you a lot. Hopefully you gained a lot from this session. We recorded it and it will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. So don't worry if you missed out on taking any notes. There will be a chance to rewatch it later. And I hope you come back to it and take some of the insights that were shared. And best of luck. I really think that there's a lot of great information shared that can help expand and grow your business. So yeah, with that, on behalf of Bridges for Enterprise and Stepchange Africa, this has been truly a treat, and yeah, wish you all the best. And we hope to host another session, maybe something like this in the future. So yeah, look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.